Good afternoon and good morning. Welcome to the first session of the Tribal Nations Partnership e-commerce initiative to help Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian visual artists and craftspeople and those who work with them. My name is Susan Anthony, United States Patent and Trademark Office Tribal Affairs Liaison, and I am coming to you from Arlington, Virginia, outside Washington, D.C. Before I describe the initiative and today's program, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of this beautiful land, the Powhatan, the Monacan, and the Cherokee, in whose country I live and work, and pay respect to their spiritual and living connection to land, waters, and culture, and to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I am deeply indebted to our partners, the Indian Arts and Crafts Board of the United States Department of the Interior, and the not-for-profit Indian Dispute Resolution Service, founder of the Acorn Project, providing small business resources for Native American entrepreneurs. This project has been a year in the making and a true labor of love. On January 22 last year, President Biden issued an executive order on economic relief related to the COVID-19 pandemic, instructing federal agencies to promptly identify actions to address the economic crisis resulting from the pandemic. Agencies were instructed to prioritize actions that provide the greatest relief to individuals, families, and small businesses, and to state, local, tribal, and territorial governments. The USPTO immediately set up an economic relief working group, which I joined to take on the work related to the tribal interests. The work we envisioned coupled well with work that Ken Van Way of the Indian Arts and Crafts Board already was developing, and together he and I were fortunate to become acquainted with our third partner, the Indian Dispute Resolution Service, and their representatives, Mark Thompson and Lynn Wilson. We already are hearing that this initiative is unlike anything that the artists and craftspeople have seen, and with that encouragement, I now turn the program over to Ken Van Way, Indian Arts and Crafts Board, as today we are wearing the hats of co-moderators. Ken?
Sorry, I was muted. Good, thank you, Susan. Good afternoon and good morning. I'm Ken Van Way from the Indian Arts and Crafts Board, and I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon. Susan and I, over the course and the IDRS, over the course of 2021, we worked to identify topics that Native Americans would need to know to develop or expand their presence in e-commerce and to sell their arts and crafts there. Today's session starts at the beginning. It's the introduction to entrepreneurship and developing a business plan. From here on out, on the second Thursday of every month from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we tried to find a time that would accommodate Native Hawaiians. You'll find us offering another session on what Native Americans, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians need to know to sell their arts and crafts online. The sessions will involve any number of different speakers who are experts in their session topics. The sessions are free. The sessions are being recorded, although we have not yet determined where they will be housed, and registration is available for any and all of these sessions. General topics for March through December may be seen in the registration portal that USPTO is handling. We welcome hearing from registrants on what additional information you feel you need, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate any such requests. If the initiative works well, the partners are prepared to look ahead to what we could offer in 2023. I'd like to introduce all of today's panelists up front, not necessarily in the order that they're going to appear. If you have questions, pose them in chat. We can't open up the voice lines for people to ask them directly, but we'll do our best to intervene or intercede rather to ask your questions during the program. So to begin, we have 4 speakers today: Mark Thompson, Lynn Wilson, Mary Beth Timothy, and Brian Wagnon. Sorry, Brian. We encourage you to read more about our speakers on the registration portal. Mark Thompson serves as the Executive Director for the Indian Dispute Resolution Services. He previously served as the organization's business manager, where he helped create the IDRS Acorn Project, IDRS's Micro Enterprise Assistance Program. Prior to coming to IDRS, Mark built, owned, and operated several small businesses of his own, including a restaurant, a mobile entertainment company, and a real estate brokerage. Currently, Mark and his wife operate a small horse boarding facility and an equine-related online business. Lynn Wilson has championed and supported rural economic development for over 15 years. Since 2014, her work is specifically focused on working with tribes to increase private enterprise on their reservations through small business development. Her work has focused on operating a technology business incubator, entrepreneurial training, business counseling, economic, demographic, and social research related to economic development. Mary Beth Timothy is a native artist based in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Mary Beth is a self-taught multimedia artist who specializes in wild birds, animals, and wildflowers. Mary Beth, with her husband John Timothy, operate Moonhawk Art LLC. Moonhawk Art is a native art retail business featuring the art of the Timothys printed on items such as decorative tiles, coffee mugs, and cuff bracelets. They sell at art shows, markets, and native art and cultural museums across the country, as well as operate an online store on Etsy. For the past 5 years, Mary Beth has provided small business workshops to native artists and craftspeople on how to create stores on the Etsy platform and sell their arts and crafts online. Brian Wagnon is a Cherokee citizen and a small business development specialist with the Cherokee Nation Commerce Department Small Business Assistance Center. He works with Native Americans to help them expand and improve their managerial and financial capacity through small business lending and development. Before working for the Cherokee Nation, Brian worked in the building material sales industry as a contractor salesman for 10.5 years, helping contractors and homeowners build and renovate many houses in Tahlequah and the surrounding area. We would also like to note that Brian and Ashley also serve as foster parents through Cherokee Nation Indian Child Welfare. So please join me in welcoming our speakers for today. And I think you're starting us off, Mark.
I think it's Lynn just saying hello, but she may not want to. You gave us such a great introduction, Ken, that I don't know that she may have much to say. But Medi, if we could start the PowerPoint, because I think I have lost it, and we can go from there. And Lynn will just say a quick hello, and then I will roll on.
All right. Well, Osio Nagad, hello everyone. As Ken alluded to during the introduction, this webinar series is going to help you explore how to enhance your entrepreneurial capabilities by engaging in e-commerce. You know, in any entrepreneurial venture, you really need to have a good plan to guide you. So today we're going to start this series by introducing everyone to the business planning process. Now, we're not going to go deep in detail on how to develop a business plan, but what we're going to do is provide you with a general overview of the components that make up a business plan. And to help us better understand these components and how they relate to an art business, my dear friend Mary Beth Timothy is going to share her experience of starting and operating an art business, which, as Ken mentioned, was Moonhawk Art LLC. Now, since the Cherokee Nation Small Business Assistance Center really played a crucial role in helping Mary Beth get her business started, that's why we also invited Brian Wagnon, again from the Cherokee Nation Small Business Assistance Center, so that he could share additional insight that might be helpful to you, especially if you are seeking any kind of funding to help start or grow your business. But you know, before I get started, I really want to take a minute to discuss entrepreneurship and the importance of entrepreneurship in Indian country. You know, entrepreneurship provides us with many opportunities that we can't get through regular employment. And as an entrepreneur, you have more freedom to pursue your passions and become self-sufficient. You know, this is really important for those of us who are living in rural communities or perhaps on reservation where we don't have a lot of access to jobs and gig opportunities. Those kind of opportunities are really limited for us, so we have to really rely on entrepreneurship to create those opportunities for ourselves. But you know, entrepreneurship really has a deeper impact than simply providing a means to support ourselves. In Indian country, entrepreneurship plays a huge role in self-determination. Most of our tribal nations engage in some kind of entrepreneurial venture and use it as a platform to protect sovereignty and economic autonomy. But we really can't expect our tribes to take on this task alone, nor can we expect our tribal enterprises to create businesses that fill all the gaps in the markets for products and services, especially those products and services that might involve maintaining or sharing our culture. Entrepreneurship is a way that we as individuals can practice self-determination. And through entrepreneurship, we have the ability to make what we want, how we, think how we want, and live in a way that we feel is best for our families and our communities. So those of you who are Native artists or craftsmen are likely already engaged in entrepreneurship. You're probably selling your work at art markets and powwows and to other people in your community. We hope that through this webinar series that you learn how to utilize e-commerce to expand your business and participate in the worldwide economy. Because when you sell products to people in other regions, not only are you making money for yourself, but the money that you make, you're spending in your native community, which support other entrepreneurs. So on that note of inspiration, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Thompson, and we're going to start talking about the components of a business plan.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Lynn. We didn't have our slides up, so I want to take it back just 1 second. If you could see now, like Ken introduced us earlier, I'm Mark Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Indian Dispute Resolution Services. We run a program called the IDRS Acorn Project, which is our micro enterprise, or another name is Small Business Development Program. And that's our contact information, and we'll have this up as later in the program as well as you'll find this information on our website. I just wanted to real briefly tell you a little bit about IDRS. So we're a Native-led 501c3 nonprofit. We're based here in Plymouth, California. We've been providing dispute resolution services such as negotiation and mediation training, mediation and facilitation services, and tribal elections. We do monitoring and act as administrator for elections. We've been doing that since 1989, thus our name, the Indian Dispute Resolution Services. But in 2011, we formed the IDRS Acorn Project to provide small business development services, such as training and counseling to Native artists and entrepreneurs. And we are currently working, and we have programs in California, Nevada, Oklahoma, and on the Navajo Nation in Arizona. We also do partnerships with other tribes and Native organizations. Currently, we're partnering with the Institute of American Indian Arts to provide training and small business assistance, and they're located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And with the great partnership with the USPTO, the fine people there, and at the Indian Arts and Crafts Board as well. So we want to thank them as well for helping us host these workshops. And you can find out more information about our program nativebiz.org, and our website. If you look at the last half of my email, idrsinc.org, our website is www.idrsinc.org for our organization. So our whole training today is talking about business planning and trying to get you, even if you're a Native artist, into the business planning mindset. And so one of the courses that we deliver here at IDRS is a course on how to generate a business idea, appropriately called Business Idea Generation, or BIG for short. All right, that's our big class. And when we designed that class, we were hoping to get entrepreneurs to start generating ideas. And we knew that we thought that looking at the business plan was going to be very important, or looking at business planning. But we also thought that we should have entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs look at themselves around and see how they fit into the entrepreneurial world. And so we looked around and we found these entrepreneurial personality quizzes and incorporated one into our course. Now, the first quiz that we started using, if you answered questions in a certain way, according to the quiz's scoring model, the results would actually say that, like, if you scored low on the quiz, that you should not be an entrepreneur, you should only go get a job. And we didn't like that because we feel that anybody can become an entrepreneur. But to be successful, you just have to do entrepreneurship in the way that works best for you. So we started using a quiz that was based on the Big 5 personality traits. And so the reason why we're discussing this today is we want you guys to be thinking about you. So we're going to be talking about the business planning process in just a few moments, but we want you to also think about yourself as an entrepreneur. And because much like you're going to be thinking about ways to solve problems in your business when you're going through the business planning process, you may want to solve things or prepare yourself or find ways to rejigger, for lack of a better term, things in your personal life or with yourself as an entrepreneur before you get into the business. So we've been using this quiz called the Big 5 personality traits. You may have seen this discussed previously. They use it quite a bit around psychology. It goes by the acronyms OCEAN or CANOE. Sometimes it's called the 5-factor model. So it's definitely been around. And so before we go through them, though, I just wanted to give you a sample of what the quiz looks like when we're talking about it and how we deliver it in class. So we have a couple questions here, and this is what we do. We'd have a couple sheets of paper and would have a lot of these different questions that we'd ask our entrepreneurs that were in the class to answer. It's from a book called Instinct, Tapping Your Entrepreneurial DNA to Achieve Your Business Goals. That's where we got the quiz. And it's not the only quiz that applies the 5 traits to entrepreneurial pursuits. So if you don't like this one, go ahead and choose one that works for you. A little bit later, I'm going to post a link to where you can take this quiz online. And we'll have that for you. And there's also, I don't know if you're familiar, there's a billionaire, his name is Ray Dalio, and he also uses the Big 5 personality traits in his business. And so he's built a whole website where you can take his version of the test free of charge. And so we'll put that address in the chat box as well. But basically what you do is you read through the question and you answer, does A sound more like you or does B? And there are multiple questions per section. Each section represents one of the 5 traits. And then at the end of the quiz, you add up your score and then we discuss it in class. So let's go back here to the Big 5 personality traits and we'll go through them real quickly, and just so you can kind of see what we're talking about. But there's a reason that we're going to be going through these, and you'll see that here in just a second. It's not just to discover your personality traits, because you can do that offline, but there's another thing that we definitely want to emphasize as we move through the Big 5 personality traits. So the first trait that they consider is openness to experience. So this is kind of considered the creativity trait. Somebody who is high on openness, right? So the way they score this is you're either high or low on these different traits. Somebody who's high on openness likes to try new things and has many different new interests, but they may engage in risky behavior. So there's oftentimes a lot of things that you would consider good parts of the trait, but there's also some things that tend to be negative about that trait. So somebody who's low on openness is more comfortable with tradition and routine and dislikes ambiguity and is more closed-minded. Now, you may think that being high in openness is very good to run a business, right? That just sounds like something that is going to be good, right? Oh, I'm high on creativity. And it is, right? So many famous entrepreneurs that we think of, a lot of these tech guys like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, they have a high degree of openness. And this is a great sign for many of the people on this call. There's going to be a lot of native artists that are joining us today. And so you guys are, you guys are creative as you're producing your artwork, right? So it's very, that's a real key in generating a business and being creative. However, there is a flip side. The flip side of openness is, so when we looked at somebody who likes routine, dislikes ambiguity, comfortable with tradition, that person in the business has a role as well. So somebody who's low on openness, they're going to tend to be better at enforcing regulation. So if you're starting a business where regulation is required, you need somebody who's low on openness who is going to be better at fulfilling those regulations, or that are meeting well-defined goals, such as sales goals, right? So salespeople, you may not want creative salespeople. You may want salespeople that just know how to go and follow their process in generating sales. So, and you might think of, so one way I think you can look at these different personality traits is there's different sides of them. So one side is openness and inventive. That's if you're high on openness. And the other side, if you're low, is being consistent but cautious, right? And so we're going to try to put these different terms in a positive light. The next trait is conscientiousness. So this is your tendency to display self-discipline and strive for achievement. So if you're high in conscientiousness, you might be considered efficient, organized, focused, but you can also be considered stubborn. If you're low on conscientiousness, you might be considered spontaneous, flexible, free-spirited, but maybe extravagant and careless. So some of these, they sound bad, don't they? So who wants to be thought of as careless? But I want to assure you that when you're taking this test, you're not either one or the other, but you're generally on a spectrum, so between the two, right? So you're not either just high or low, you're somewhere in the middle, but you may be closer to one than the other. And when what we're doing is we're comparing between somebody who would be higher or lower. So somebody who is higher on conscientiousness is less likely to be careless than somebody who is low. But it doesn't mean that somebody who scores lower is definitely careless. So we don't want you guys to be thinking about this, thinking about it in that way. And this test doesn't say anything about ethics, right? So ethics are really big in business and having high integrity, but these personality traits aren't addressing that. So you can be extremely conscientious, and what do we say about conscientiousness? Is that you are hardworking and you're striving for achievement. So you can really be striving, but the goal you're pursuing is unethical. So don't take this, if I score low or high in any of these 5 personality traits, I'm bad, or I'm not a good person, because it doesn't mean that. It just means you're more likely to have that trait than you're not. But I think you're all good people, and so that's the belief we should all have. And let's continue to roll through. So the third trait is extraversion. So somebody who is high on extraversion gets their energy from engagement with the external world, where if you're low on extraversion, you don't. So this is important. We were having a discussion at the Potlatch Fund. So the Potlatch Fund up in Washington, if you're not familiar with that, they support Native artists, and we were there working with them and doing small business training with their cohort of Native artists. And somebody in our class, they said, being an introvert doesn't mean that they don't like being around people. It just means that she needed more downtime to be by herself than an extrovert would, right? And that's true. So being low, being low on extroversion, which means you're more of an introvert, doesn't mean you're antisocial. You just generate energy in a different way. But I think that we can see that being an extrovert, especially when you're an entrepreneur, can be a benefit, especially you as artists, right? So if you guys are always willing to be out there talking with people, selling your art, especially if you get energy from it, so you love it, it's, you want more and more and be with people, it's going to be a very good thing, right? That salespeople that are extroverted, right, they become a lot better salespeople than somebody who's introverted. But I myself, I'm a real introvert, and what I'm, And so I want to ask you guys, so what if I'm not just introverted, but something that doesn't talk about on this, the big 5 personality traits, it's kind of outside of that. But what if I have not only am introverted, but what if I have anxiety too? And I really don't like being around people or interacting with people. I just kind of have a phobia about that. But I need somebody to run my art business, or I need to run it, right? And I need to get my artwork sold. In the chat box, do any of you have any ideas of what I can do? Kind of any suggestions you might be, I got to sell my artwork, but I really don't want to, I don't really want to get out there. Anybody? And I'm looking in the chat box. Christopher says online sales, great. Yes, Joshua, online sales. Anybody else? Any other suggestions you guys might have?
I see Instagram, online platforms. One person mentions Etsy. That comes from Mary Beth.
Yeah. Word of mouth. Online. I like what Melanie just put. Have family help, right? So I think those are all great suggestions, right? So if you have the money, oftentimes as Native artists, we don't have the money to hire a salesperson, but hiring somebody or getting that assistance from somebody in your family that is more extroverted, that is willing to go out there and talk about somebody, right? So always asking for help, finding somebody that can balance your skills, or doing the business online, right? When you don't have to interact with people, you can do everything through email, or maybe, doing a webinar is fine, or doing, video communications online is fine. You just don't want to be there with somebody in person, right? So it's finding ways to operate the business that work for you. And that's what we want to get through with this exercise. It's not about having the right personality traits to be an entrepreneur or to run a business, right? It's not either this way or you shouldn't do it. It's how can you adjust the business, or who can you partner or team with, or who can you get help from that will allow you to overcome your weaknesses or things that you're lacking in when you're trying to grow your business. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying for you to be thinking about the personality traits that you possess, right? Not as a good or a bad thing. That's just who you are. And how can I overcome those so that I can make sure that my business is successful? Okay, let's finish up the last 2. So we have agreeableness, and agreeableness is just how much you can or are willing to cooperate with others. And so highly agreeable people value getting along with others. So obviously this is valuable in the business to bring others along with your ideas, to have a cohesive office environment, or a cohesive work, or, however you're doing your work, right? If you can get along with people, it's going to work better. Whereas disagreeable individuals, they place self-interest above getting along with others. But, this too may be valuable. If you're in an area where you believe that you're right about an idea, but you're with people that don't believe, right? Being able to be low on disagreeableness and not worry about having to be a people pleaser allows you to fight for an idea that you believe is right, but is unpopular, right? So like we said, there's good or bad. It's just finding the right ways in those times to utilize the trait that works best for you. And if you don't have a certain trait, or you're low on a certain trait, when you need to be high, or vice versa, finding those people that help. Another thing that you guys also might be thinking about is, does this apply in Indian country, or is this just something from non-native communities, right? Because you obviously have a lot of non-native psychologists, sociologists who are working on this. And there have been found some minor differences between cultures and between genders, such as women. I don't want to put any derogatory thing, but I'll just say that women are a little bit higher on neuroticism than men tend to be. But for the most part, this research has held up well, not just among different cultures here in the United States, but actually around the world. This has been applied to different cultures and different languages. And sometimes they say that even the difference between cultures just happens to be a language barrier in the way that they're asking the questions. And while some social scientists believe that where you land on the spectrum may change in specific circumstances or with disease, for the most part, they believe that after age 30, that these traits are generally locked in and don't change much through your life. So be thinking about this, right? So, I'll talk about this next in neuroticism because I'm a little neurotic myself. And, you know, and thinking about, well, can I change it? You may not be able to change. So it's important to find ways that you can design the business or get help to do that, to do the business in the best way that works for you. So finally, the last trait is neuroticism. And so neuroticism is just the tendency that you have to experience negative emotions. So if you're high on neuroticism, it's going to be tough, right? If you're often anxious, if you have trouble dealing with day-to-day stress, you're a worrier. Where on the flip side, if you don't get overwhelmed and you're less likely to worry, that's going to be a lot easier to run a business. So I'm definitely high on neuroticism. I'm a worrier. So let's say I'm worried about my business. I'm worried I'm going to lose all my money. I'm worried that the business is going to fail. So I'm worried about what people think about me. Was I stupid for starting my business? You know, maybe I even feel like I'm just anti-risk. So it's hard to start a business when you're anti-risk, right? Because there's always risk in starting the business. So now you guys are now the small business counselor, just like you guys helped me out with extroversion and me being a little bit of an introvert. What are some of your suggestions you would have for me if I'm very high in neuroticism? I'm always a worrier. I'm really anti-risk. Do you guys have any suggestions that you would have for me about things that I might be doing that would help me get into business, even when I'm a little scared to do it? Okay, like that, Joshua, meditation. Lynn said, get a mentor. Christopher, make a plan. Joshua said, accepting failure, right? Sometimes just learning to change yourself and learning to train and accept some of the things that are going to happen are important. Therapy, partner with a risk taker. Those are great. Get super organized. These are great suggestions. I think you guys got this stuff. Some of the stuff that I wrote down are right in line with what you guys are suggesting, right? Planning, maybe starting small. What we talk about in the class is bootstrapping, where you're not going to get a loan. I'm going to start small. And a similar kind of a similar way to do that is, you've heard now probably about starting a side hustle, right? Where you have a business and then you're going to do a side hustle on the side while you're working a job, and then you're going to do your side hustle on the side. So that's a way to reduce risk. So if the business fails, you still have your job to go back to. Save before going into business. Bring on a partner. I know that was just said by Santiago. You could always change the type of business that you can do, even not talking about risk, but let's say that you wanted to do, like I was antisocial, right? In choosing a business like doing something online where I don't have to interact with people, that may actually help me get into business and run the business. Whereas if you said, hey, you just have to be, you have to be an extrovert so you can go out there and sell yourself, you might not engage in the business. There's lots of different ways, and now the internet has opened up a whole new way to really expose and provide all different ways that you can get into business and run your business successful. And like Lynn was just talking about, you guys are native artists. You guys are in business already, right? You guys are already producing your product, your artwork, and then you guys are selling it, right? And distributing it and marketing yourselves. So you guys are already in business. What we're here to do is try to help you get a little bit better and make that business and make it more profitable and make it easier for you. So I think this is great. I would encourage you to go take either one of the quizzes. Like I said, I'm going to put the links in the chat box that we've suggested, or if you don't like the ones that we suggested, go seek some others out. But I definitely think it's important that you take a look at your personality traits before you get into business, just like you would investigating the business plan. You're investigating yourself first. So with that, let me, I have a little slide here for Lynn.
Okay. So we're getting ready to get into talking about business plans. But before we get started with that, I just kind of want to ask everyone if you can raise your hand if you feel really overwhelmed by the idea of writing a business plan. Yes, I see hands going up, plenty of them. Yes. So, you know, writing a business plan, the whole thought of that is really scary, and it is very overwhelming for a lot of people. I've been working with entrepreneurs for almost 20 years now, and you know, that business planning process is something that is just very difficult for people to tackle. And so, but one thing that I've learned over the years, and I'm sure when we talk to Brian Wagner here in just a little bit, because he does a lot of what I do, is that the business planning process really doesn't have to be that overwhelming. There's different ways to do business plans. There's no one right way. I've seen really good business plans that are, you know, 10 pages, and I've seen business plans that are, you know, a couple of 100 pages, just depending on the type of business. But and we'll also talk with Mary Beth, you know, about, you know, the business planning process and what it was like for her. So Mark, why don't you go ahead and get us started, and we'll just start covering the components of a business plan, and you can show us, you know, a couple of different business planning tools that we might use that can make the process not so overwhelming.
Okay, great. So, so we got a slide here. So what is business planning for anybody that's wondering about, you know, exactly what we're talking about? And all business planning is, you know, and you may be doing it even on a very small scale, no matter what you're doing in business. And I think we all do it kind of inherently. Like, you know, we're not just jumping in and not thinking about, right? We're always thinking about what's the best way we do that. We're going to encourage you to put a little bit of that on paper, but you're doing a lot of that in your mind already. So business planning is just an action of setting goals, the strategies, and then the tactics, how you're going to accomplish those goals that you as the business owner believe will be necessary to do something in your business. So this can be creating the business, right? So you're starting it from scratch. This can be launching a new product line. So even if you're in business, there's still reason to be doing business planning. This can even be something smaller, like planning your social media calendar for next month, right? We're always planning, and we encourage you to always be planning in your business and writing it down, because it's going to help you and improve the planning process. So when we're referencing business planning, though, in this class, it's really talking about starting a business, or if you're already in business, growing a business, right? So it really looking at the business plan, and then a couple of other planning tools that we're going to show you here in a minute. But this webinar series is all about helping you as a native artist grow your business to sell online or to expand your online sales, right? So if you're haven't started, you know, we're going to want you to be incorporating online sales into your plan. But if you're just currently selling and you're not selling online, right, this is a perfect, and so even though you already have your business started, this is a perfect way to develop a plan and say, how am I going to get my business online? What are the best distribution channels? What are the best ways to, to market myself online? All those things, right? And you can see where planning for that can really help and reduce a lot of the problems that you might incur along the way. So we think it is important to plan, even if you do it informally. All right, but we think it's better on paper. But you don't want to start a business. If you're starting a business, right, you don't want to do it and invest your hard-earned money and in your even more invaluable time, right? You can always get more money, right? We often don't have a lot of it, but one thing you can never get more of is time. And you don't want to invest a lot of that without putting a good amount of thought into determining the feasibility of your business. Is this business going to work? There's always a risk to starting a business, but you want to make sure that you're taking a calculated risk, meaning the chance of success is higher than the chances of failing. And so as you have carried out the appropriate amount of research, that's going to help you make sure that what you're doing is important. It's a little bit different as a native artist, right? Because you're already doing your artwork, but there is still the chance that, hey, if I go sink in a bunch of money with a certain platform or something, that you could be out a good deal of money. Your business won't maybe not totally fail. You'll still be able to produce your artwork, but it may set you back. And so that's where planning can really help and helping you grow your business. So planning is going to help you determine the financial feasibility of your business. So this is kind of maybe the best thing to work on first, but planning will also help you determine the market feasibility of your business. Are people willing to buy my product? And so this is a part you're going to focus on after determining the financial feasibility. So a question in our slide: do you need a business plan? So you can start and grow your business without planning or developing a formal business plan. We've known a lot of entrepreneurs in the past that have done it. I've worked for people in the past that have started without writing anything down. They just get out there and, every day they just figure out a way to make it work. That's, so that's not you're guaranteed to fail. There's lots of people that make it work that way. But we know a lot of people that have tried to operate that way and have failed. And they might not have tried and wasted their money, right, and getting out there, or they would have done it in a more successful way, and their business would have succeeded if they would have done some planning first, right? And so that's why we encourage, right? All we're doing here in this planning process is reducing some of the risk. So, and I'll give a personal story. So Ken mentioned at the introduction that I used to be in the restaurant business. So I've seen several people enter the restaurant business because it was their passion. They loved food, they loved restaurants, or they were good cooks. But they were good cooks, right? And they weren't planners, or they weren't into business, right? And so they really wanted to show off their skill, their artistry, but they didn't plan. And then they spent a bunch of money, decorated the whole restaurant, and then they end up losing it. And not only just the restaurant, but sometimes their life savings. And a personal anecdote. So when we started the restaurant, I started this with a high school friend, and the owner financed. So we went in with a down payment, but a relatively small to the cost of the overall business, and we didn't make it. And after 6 months, we just said, we can't do it anymore. And we actually gave the business back. We didn't get our down payment back, and it kind of hurt me because, like, my grandfather had loaned me that money, and I wasn't able to get it back to him. And so I kind of felt like a failure, and we didn't plan. We just saw this opportunity that was in our hometown, and so we went for it. And I think if we would have planned a little bit better, maybe we wouldn't have wasted that money, wasted my grandfather's money, really. And or maybe we would have been a success. Maybe we would have done it a different way. So I'm speaking from experience here when I say that it's important to plan. So in this webinar, we're going to focus on the business plan, but in a second, we'll be talking about showing you kind of the components of a business plan, but the business plan is just what is it? It's a written document describing the company's core business activities, so your objectives and how you plan to achieve your goals, like we talked about before, right? And so as we walk through the different uses of the business plan, I think that you'll see the importance how it can work for your business, even if you're an artist. Okay, so in addition, if you want somebody from your business to give you money, right? That's one of the things a lot of times why people prepare the business plan. They're looking for a loan, and Brian provides loans there at the Small Business Assistance Center, so he'll be talking about this in just a little bit. You're often going to be required to have a business plan. So if you're looking for that lender, sometimes if you're looking to get certified, so there's the SBA's 8A program that's for minority small businesses to do government contracting. So it probably doesn't apply to many of you. That's not something you guys are looking to as artists. But if you did want to get certified in a program like that, the SBA requires you to have a business plan. So sometimes you may not want to create a business plan, but you need certain things for your business to get certified, to get money. And those people that you need to get those things from are going to require you to have a business plan. And so even when the business plan is not required, the business plan guides you through each stage of starting and managing your business. So the business plan is essentially a roadmap. So it's going to help you not only structure and run your business, or excuse me, I should say structure, but it's, you can actually put things in there that's going to allow you to run it. So you can follow it step by step. Okay, I do this. Okay, so what's my next step? So you're never wondering, what should I do next? There's always something that you can be following. And one of the things that we always talk about is that the business plan is a living, breathing document. So you can go back to it and say, okay, I just did this, and this isn't working. I need to change this up, right? And you're changing that business plan to make it more accurate and make it work for what you're doing. So just finally here, before we get into the components of the business plan, some different planning tools. And we just wanted to share these because we know that these are out there and these are being shared more and more. And so we're going to introduce just a couple here just to familiarize with you. You don't have to use these though. So don't think that we're pushing one way or the other, but we're going to explain why we still use the business plan and why we talk about the business plan here at the Acorn Project. But there's all kinds out there, and really the important thing is find the planning tool that works best for you. That's really what's most important. Okay, so the first thing is the business model canvas. So this has become more popular as late, and it's really it's a one-sheet planning tool that allows you to describe your proposed business model. This is used a lot in kind of technology, software sectors, that kind of area. And so what it allows you to do is put your information in these different sections on the canvas. Then you go and you test it out, right? So it's not very in-depth. It's basically what you're seeing here, a one-page plan. You're filling out these different boxes, and then you're going out and saying, okay, I see how my business plan, I got my partners. Then you go out, you test that, and you bring that data back and you say, did my business model work the way I thought it was? And then you plug that data back in here, you change up, and you go out with another hypothesis. Really kind of a scientific method to approach in developing your business model. And so I think coming back to your plan is great. Like I just mentioned, right? Living, breathing document. However, for most small entrepreneurs, they may not have the time or the willingness to do ongoing business planning, right? And so maybe getting them the one time, getting them to do the business plan may be the better way. And so that's why we're doing this. Also, you can see in the business model canvas, it doesn't have a lot of information that you're plugging in there. And so if you're not going out and immediately testing those ideas and coming back, you may not be fully fleshing out your idea. And so that's one of the reasons why we think the business plan is a little bit better for small entrepreneurs. So here's another business planning tool. This is just from the SBA, very similar to what we just saw with the business model canvas. This is called the Lean Business Plan. A lot of the same information that is in this as the business model canvas, they just label it differently. And we just wanted to bring this to you just to show you that there are different ways of doing business planning and different tools that are out there. And like we said, encourage you to choose the one that's right for you. So let's go to the business plan. So here is the business plan. We've already mentioned that the business plan is a written document. So also in that BIG class that we talked about, we do a goal setting exercise about SMART goals. And so SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay. And I just mentioned this goal setting because we think the business plan is one big goal, right? You're saying that your plan is going to be how you're going to create or you're going to grow this business. That's your goal. And so what you're doing is you're saying, here's the evidence that shows why I'm right, that I believe that I can achieve this goal. And so that's kind of the external, the outward facing portion of the business plan. That's a lot of times what you're showing to that banker when you're going for the loan. And then also in the business plan, you can show, here's how I'm going to do that, right? And that's internal. That's to you as the entrepreneur. Here's the steps that I need to take to be able to reach my goal. And so that's what the business plan can do for you. And as always, a business plan comes in all shapes and sizes, all different lengths, right? We're not here saying, hey, you guys should do a business plan that is 100 pages long. That's not only overkill, it's just wasteful time. And a lot of times when you're doing that much work on a business plan, the opportunity may pass you by. You may get burned out, right? There's also that, it's not just how much money do I have to start my business? It's also the energy that you have as the entrepreneur. You're driving a lot. And if you run out of energy, that's also a big reason for failure, right? So make sure that you're doing the planning that's going to be most appropriate, that can keep your energy level up and keep you going on getting the business going. So, and then also you may find a business plan template online. There's all kinds of different ones out there. They may have different components, and some of those components may not apply to you. It's totally okay to disregard them. Make the business plan what you need specifically for your business. So we're going to just quickly go over the sections of the business plan, and then we're going to bring in some experts that have written and reviewed business plans for Native artists, and that's Brian and Mary Beth. Okay, so, and I just want to say, so in our class, we give a business plan out from the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, I believe that's what it's called. And we've even condensed that down a little bit for the components here, because we think these are kind of the five important components that you need for the plan. And you'll actually see in a lot of plans, they're including these 5 components, but they actually may break those things out into where you have lots of different sections in the plan, but it's really just these that are broken out into additional sections as opposed to putting them all together. So, so the components. So executive summary. So what is the executive summary? It's just a brief introduction and summary of your business plan. So it should describe your business and what the business is going to solve, who your target market is, kind of the financial highlights. If you're using the plan to seek funding, an important thing is to highlight how much money you need and how much you want to borrow. But the executive summary is only going to be 1 or 2 pages long. And if you have a real short plan, it may be even shorter than that. And some people are only going to read the summary, even if you give them the whole plan and you've spent a lot of time, you've developed a 30, 40-page business plan. A lot of people aren't going to read that. That's maybe only ever for you, right? For you getting all your thoughts down. They just want to see, they want to get the nitty gritty. They're looking at that summary. So some people are going to read that summary. And so this is really written for outsiders, right? So if you're writing the business plan and you never plan to go for a loan, you're only writing it for yourself and you're planning and trying to see how you're going to make the business work for you. It's fine to even skip the executive summary, right? You don't have to do all these things. Don't do additional work that lowers that energy when you don't have to. Okay. But I will say this though, that writing a good executive summary, even if you're not giving that plan out to others, it may actually help you at least in the sales process. So we talk about something in our business called the elevator pitch. And really condensing down your business plan to a very short elevator pitch, right? That's the executive summary. That's going to help you deliver what your business is, what your product is, and how it's going to bring value to your customer. That you can do that all by writing a really good, tight executive summary. So that's why it could be valuable. You can see that we're very flexible. We don't want to say it has to be this way for you to be successful, right? If you don't feel like you need the executive summary, toss it out. But even if you're not giving it to somebody, writing a good executive summary brings value, right? But we want to make the business plan work for you. So the company and business description, that's where you have the opportunity to talk about the particulars of your company, such as who's running it, how it's being organized. Is this a sole proprietorship or is it a corporation or something else? Allows you to put your mission statement in there while you're doing the business and to describe what your business does in the case of a service business or what it sells, or what product it sells in the case of a product business. So, and another important component, if you're putting in there information about your product or your service, is to make sure you're talking about the features and benefits of your product or service. because the features are what makes the great things about your product, what you really like, all the things what makes your product great. But you want to make sure that you're tying those features to benefits for the customer. How is your customer going to really benefit by getting this? I can say, okay, I have a coffee mug here. So I hope everybody's seeing my coffee mug. Oh, it's a little blurry, but I could say, hey, this coffee mug keeps the temperature of my coffee at 150 degrees for 40 hours. I have all these different features. But if I am the customer, I don't need it to be kept that hot for 40 hours, or maybe that's too hot for me, right? Making sure that the features that you have in your product are benefiting the customer that you're trying to sell to is very important. And you can do it here during this section. Lynn is actually a market research expert. She's actually gone and studied this and brings all our marketing research programs. So Lynn, you want to bring us a little bit on market research and what that section should include.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I like about market research, sorry, I didn't mean to turn my camera off, is that it's a really great tool to determine the feasibility of your business. So earlier, Mark was talking about financial planning. So usually when I'm working with a client on a business plan, definitely the financial section is one of the first places I start with. I'll be interested to hear Brian's thoughts on this in a little bit, because to me, if the numbers don't make sense, we gotta change something. We gotta do something different. But the second way that I help a client determine if their business idea is feasible is through market research. So really, market research is about collecting information that provides an insight to your customers, how they think, what their buying patterns are, maybe where is it that they're going to purchase a particular type of product or service. And so, for you guys who are native artists, a lot of times in our classes, and you say market research, and it's like, wow, how do I do that? How do I go out and do market research? It sounds like such a difficult thing. But there are some, really easy ways that you can do market research. You can social media major in doing market research now. And I'll just give a quick example. My sister, she's not a native artist, but she was a nurse for our tribe, and she needed to leave her job to care for my nephew who is disabled. And so she got the idea of starting a daycare center for disabled children. So one of the first things I did with her is I said, well, let's go out and find out if there's actually a need for this service. So we created a survey, we put it on Facebook, asked people to share it. And through doing Facebook surveys, my sister was able to determine that people really wouldn't use the service because they could send their kids to public school for free. And, it's pretty expensive to use a daycare center. So she didn't start the business. But that's why I say market research is kind of really good at helping you determine, is my business idea feasible? Because if she had went out and put a lot of money into starting that business and then later on find out that although people thought it was an excellent idea, they personally wouldn't use it themselves. But as an artist, some things that you might think of, aside from using social media, is go to art shows or art markets, powwows. Pay attention to what people are buying. Are they buying the kind of, art or craft it is that you're making? And so that's a great place to do market research. So just go hang out, look around, see what people are buying. If you have the gumption and the nerve, go up and talk to some of the vendors and say, hey, how's this working for you? Are you selling a lot of this kind of item? And I think a lot of artists, especially native artists, we all do want to, or I say we, I'm not an artist, but, as native people, I think we want to support and help one another as much as we can. So that is just one of the simple ways. Another thing that you could do is to go to galleries and local stores that carry maybe the type of work that you create and ask them, what is selling and what's not. So those are just a few very, very simple ways that as a native artist, you can do some market research.
Okay, great. So so that's the marketing research tab. And so then next we have sales strategies, and so or marketing plan. And really the marketing plan is a plan within a plan. So I think, you know, this has always been my favorite section of the business plan. So I think if you're creative, right, we have a lot of artists online. I think this is a great way to let your creativity show, right? So, you know, you're going to find different ways to promote your product, you know, ways to advertise. You know, Lynn's just talking about, you know, creativity and doing market research, you know, being able to get up there and talk to people and talk about your business. You know, you can really design the way you want your business and how you can promote yourself. But the marketing plan is more than that, right? So when we think of marketing, we think of what we call promotion. And promotion is only one of what we call the 4 P's of marketing. So let me just tell you real quick what the 4 P's of marketing. It's price. So that's how much you're going to sell your product or service for. There's product. Now we touched on that during the company and business description, but it would be okay to move the product section down here to the marketing plan, right? Do what works best for you, what you feel is most appropriate. But you know, so but you know, product is describing describing the product and talking about those features and benefits. Place, that's one of the P's. That's just where your customers can find your products. And then promotion, what we're just talking about now, that's what we typically think of as marketing, which includes advertising, social media marketing, public relations, everything else. It's all in there. Okay, so that's the marketing section. You know, and you can see we're going through this pretty quickly. This is not telling you how to do a plan. We're going to highlight some other stuff as Brian and Mary Beth and Lynn are talking in just a little bit. But what we want to do is we want to get you used to what a business plan is, to kind of reduce some of that fear and to encourage you to investigate it, right? This isn't in this 2-hour webinar to say, hey, you should be an expert now, go out and prepare your business plan. This is to kind of see, okay, oh, all right, that a business plan that isn't too daunting. I think I can tackle that. That's what we want to encourage you to do here. And then if you need help, you know, there's definitely, we'll talk about ways that you can get help at the end of this webinar. Okay, final, just real quickly, the final component is financial projections. And so this is a critical tool in determining the feasibility of your business, right? Because you're looking at the numbers. So are you going to be profitable? How long is it going to take to be profitable? Will I have excess funds to be able to live, right? If you have to take money out of your business for living expenses, how much money you need to start the business, or to, like, if you're doing an expansion or you're going online, do I need to have funds saved up, or do I need to go get a loan to do something? All this is done in the financial projection part. So we do this through, we do in our class, we actually use a cash flow projection, where we're looking at the cash that's coming into the business, the cash that's going out, and every month we're trying to make sure that we don't go negative, and we're planning to always be bringing in additional cash. And we know that doing financial projections, especially a lot of creative folks, a lot of artists that we work with, I don't want to even think about finances. Really, I want to be doing my craft. I get that. So, you know, but we still think it's important. So we want to encourage you to get help, you know, because starting a business can be scary a lot of times. And, you know, and I know that a lot of times we let our fears keep us from moving forward. I know that especially, right? Just told you guys that I'm a little bit high on the neuroticism scale of the Big 5 personality traits. But that's why business administration programs were created, to help those that may not have the means to hire consultants and still get support, that they can still grow and start and grow their business. So with that, what I want to do now is I want to bring in, we're going to have Mary Beth and Brian introduce, and I think Lynn has some questions. So let me get over here to the Mary Beth slide, because I think we're going to have Mary Beth go first, right? Am I correct on that, Lynn?
Yeah. Let's have Mary Beth introduce herself, and then we can have Brian and Then we'll get into the real fun of the part of this whole presentation, which is getting to just talk candidly with both of them.
Okay. Well, my name is Mary Beth Timothy. Like they said, I am a Cherokee artist from northeastern Oklahoma. My husband and I are actually both full-time artists, and I'm originally from Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, depending on whether you're from there or not, how you say it. But we are both multimedia artists that, and I guess I better save the rest of it for the questions, but we do have our home business. We're full-time artists, and I think that's about it without answering questions before we get to the questions.
Answering questions before we get to the questions.
Right.
Well, I'm Brian Wagner. I do work for the Cherokee Nation Small Business Assistance Center. We're CDFI, have been a CDFI. That's a picture of my brother.
Oh,
I have a twin brother.
Lynn.
You can blame Lynn. Hey, just so
Lynn.
everyone knows, Brian has a twin brother named Brad, and they are identical twins.
That's great. Hey, my boss set up my email when I started working here under Brad's name at first. So if you guys know Steven, you can give him a hard time.
Steven, you get confused.
Well, at least that you can identify yourself. So you immediately said, "Oh, that's not me."
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. The CDFI has been around since the mid '90s, back when Wilma Mankiller was chief. So it's been around for a long time. I've been here for about 8 years. Like you said in the intro, I have worked with artists and lots of other types of businesses and small business lending and coaching. Just happy to be here, happy to be sharing about small business lending as related to artists, because Mary Beth will tell you I love art and Native American art.
Awesome.
Thank goodness.
Yes, he has several of your works of art in his office, I've noticed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I'll tell you what, why don't we just get into discussing some different things. So Mary Beth, one of the first things that I would like to know is really, what was the catalyst for you to start your art business? You know, what made you think, wow, you know, I'm doing all this creative stuff on the side. I think I'm going to actually take this a step further and turn it into a business.
Well, what got me thinking about it originally was that I was just doing art part-time, and Tracy Rabbit, a fellow artist, native artist that I grew up with, actually had her art on different things like tiles. And so I had talked to her, and she agreed to print some of my images on tiles for me. And so I was doing that. And then when John and I got together, you know, of course, then we had both of our art, and we started showing them at art shows, and we started having different gift shop people coming and asking us if they could buy them wholesale. And we couldn't, because we were actually paying wholesale to have them done for us. And so one of the reasons we decided to do it is we would have to get a loan and be able to purchase our own equipment, and then, you know, be able to do it at a wholesale price instead of paying that to somebody else. So that's what kind of put it in gear. But I've never been really a business-minded person, and you know, that artist in me, I've got a lot of pretty colors in there, but not a lot of important information, I guess. But whenever I went to a First Peoples Fund class, and a native artist, entrepreneur, or something like that class, and I guess I was at a point to where I was ready then, because things started clicking, and I started thinking more of it as business instead of just hobby. And so that's whenever I started looking into it and talking to John about actually doing it as a business at that point.
All right, great. So when you decided to, oh, I'm sorry, were you going to ask a question, Mark?
Oh yeah. Well, I was just wondering because I know you were just mentioning how you kind of got in and you bought stuff. You bought stuff to lower the wholesale cost. I think it would be good to talk about all the different products that you make, because I know that you do your original art. I know John does his original art, and then you're putting that original art in a number of different products. So I think it would be good to hear for artists to be thinking about who are only producing their original art, the different ways that if they feel it's appropriate, right? Because I know some people feel, oh, I shouldn't do prints. There's all kinds of debates. I know, we've had these in our classes where we have a lot of artists. But if you feel it's appropriate, you can really productize a lot of your art and find different ways to make money. And I know in talking to Mary Beth, she even has stories about like how she's taken one item and then her famous painting and sold it and then bought it back, but then license the rights, and they make it's crazy, and it's great stories for artists that want to find different ways to make money from their art.
Right. So yeah, that was whenever we I'm afraid this is going to answer some of the questions though, but I'm going to go into
it kind of is. So why don't we go ahead and move on, and then Mark, I'm going to ask Mary Beth to talk a little bit more about her products here in just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, no
problem. That's the good thing about knowing what you're going to ask, because that way I don't just blur it all out, right?
All right. Well, Mary Beth, talking about back when you started your business, so you said that you needed to go and you needed to purchase this equipment and stuff. So tell us a little bit about how you financed all of that and what the process was like. We obviously know that you didn't use traditional bank financing, but you can talk about how you went to our tribe and was able to get assistance.
Okay, well, initially, like on the equipment and everything, I didn't even really know what we needed, and got a hold of a fellow artist that did, similar to what Tracy was doing, what we were wanting to do. And I asked her, I was like, can you tell me what I need to look for? Because I was thinking we're going to have to go out, and find these warehouses or whatever that sell all of this and buy it all new. And she said, go on Craigslist or go, look online and see if you can find the equipment used. And she told me what they used. And it's funny how things fell together. Whenever I did that, it wasn't even a few hours, and I came across a young man that was selling his entire business, and he had started like doing t-shirts and baseball hats, and then got offered a big job with the government and didn't have time to mess with it anymore. And so he had all the equipment that we needed to do the things we wanted. And so I had initially gone to our local bank where we have our bank accounts, and they didn't really laugh me out the door because my family's been using that bank for a long time. But it was pretty much like, well, hun, you need to have more, I don't know, more experience. You need to have something to put down, as collateral, all these different things. And I didn't really know a lot about that. And thankfully, Donna Tennant with Cherokee Nation had talked to me about coming in and talking to them about what I would need to do to get a loan through the nation. And that ended up being one of the best learning experiences for me, I think. I mean, and plus it was a great experience anyway, but I learned so much in working with Commerce and, with Donna and with Brian, trying to figure out what we needed to do to be able to get this started.
All right. Well, thank you. So, Brian, now I guess I want to bring you in because Mary Beth obviously went through the Cherokee Nation SBAC for a loan. So you've lent to her. Have you lent to other artists? And does the process of getting a loan as an artist differ any from any other business?
We've done several artist loans since I've been here. I wouldn't say it's the most typical business that we do, but we've done quite a few. The process initially doesn't really differ all that much, but I've learned in working with artists that, you know, sometimes you have to adapt the way that you talk to people, or the way that you have people write things up for you, the way that you get information. And it's the same with lots of other types of businesses, but artists tend to, I guess, be more creative. And then sometimes, like Mary Beth said, they don't always have all the numbers together or all the information together in a way that is presentable in a time frame that they kind of want it in. So you have to walk people through that in lots of different businesses on how to get the information to you and what format it needs to be in, things like that. So I would say it doesn't differ all that much from other types of businesses, but there is the understanding, you know, that you're going to have lots of different personalities and types of creative people as artists, and you just got to be mindful of that.
All right. Well, thank you. So, you know, I'm also curious. So, you know, maybe what other types of things artists are coming in and getting loans for, like Mary Beth, you know, specifically needed to purchase some equipment. Is that primarily what artists are coming in and getting loans for?
Primarily, yes. Some people want to, in turn, also build or remodel for studio space at their homes, usually at their home. Some people want to have money, smaller loans typically, but some people want to have money to travel to art markets. It's been hampered a lot by COVID, but some people want to have money to travel to art markets that they just don't have at the moment. So those are typically pretty small loans, but the largest amount of loans that we've done to artists have been for equipment. So you've got things like Mary Beth and John do, and potters who we've had kilns. They bought kilns through our loan program, things like that.
You know, you know, I was just hearing you talk about the, you know, that you need people that are applying for a loan to get you information. You know, I'm wondering, like, on the business plan, you know, do you require a business plan if it's a business? And then and then how detailed does it need to be? I mean, can it be very simple, you know, where you're just talking about it, or oh, Mary Beth has the answer.
Well, I don't know if it's the answer, but I just wanted to say what my experience was with that, because that was one of the things that completely overwhelmed me at first. Taking that First People's Fund class, it was one of their earlier classes, and their textbook was pretty thick at that time. And the section on business plans was a lot. And whenever I sat down, when I found out I had to do a business plan, I sat down and looked through that, and I was like, no, not going to happen. There is no way I can figure this out and do this. I just can't. And so then I had talked to Donna Tennant again, and she said, well, you know what? We have kind of an outline, what we, you know, expect. And she sent that to me. I was so thankful that she did that, because that just helped so much. And, you know, all of that stress about it and everything kind of went out the door, and being able to just walk through those easy steps and answer questions and then write it out, you know, in my own words, was so much easier. And it took me a while, because I did need help with some things, you know, projection sheets, things like that I had never done before. And so I did, you know, reach out and ask for help with different people in commerce, or even people that I worked with at the time at the museum that had done things like that before. So, sometimes you have to swallow your pride a little bit. And I think that's my biggest advice to people wanting to do that is, don't be afraid to ask for help, because help is out there.
And if I could just, along those same lines, did you do financials? Did you do or anything along the finance where you actually went out and kind of got numbers and put together on,
Yes.
and
Yes, I had to do all of that. And like I said, it was pretty overwhelming at first, but once I started talking to people that said they could sit down with me, and then it's like, light bulbs were coming on all over the place once they were doing that. So yeah, it was a lot better.
Brian, do you have any
So-
like tips that you would suggest to people that are doing that, that are doing the financials,
For sure. I'd probably put a disclaimer on this that it depends on who you're working with. I think Mary Beth would probably attest to that I'm pretty easygoing. But, I always tell people about a business plan in general and about their financials to not stress too much. If there's not something there that I need, I just call and ask them. I'm not somebody that's sitting there kind of grading their business plan. And then I always tell people that if they're just starting up, even if they've been selling art for a long time, if they're just starting their actual kind of business as an artist, you got to treat it like a projection. Most lenders aren't going to come back to those projections and penalize you in some way if you don't hit them, especially if you're talking art, because you never know what you're going to sell and what you're not going to sell. You just don't know. There were people, I referenced COVID, I guess, because it's the most recent thing, but there were people that planned to do a lot in 2020, and they did almost absolutely nothing. So as a loan fund and as a person who's processing loans for artists, we had to be understanding of that. And I think, like I said, it does depend on probably who you're working with, but I would say don't stress. Be realistic in your projections and in your business plan. Probably be conservative, but don't just second guess yourself so much that you don't end up doing it.
Yeah, so as we're talking about, I'm thinking about your CDFI, Brian, and CDFIs I know differ from traditional banks in several ways. Can you kind of explain maybe what the role or what a person's personal financial situation and their credit, kind of what role that plays whenever they're coming to the CDFI to seek funding?
CDFIs are different than banks. There is a understanding that there's going to be more risk involved in CDFI lending, and there's kind of precautions and other things taken into account, like guarantees and things like that. Like we've worked with the BIA guarantee program in the past. I think that program is sort of on hold right now, if I understand correctly, but we've worked with them in the past. So CDFIs are making riskier loans, and risk can be lots of different things. Can be credit and kind of not great financials. Can be the type of business, lots of different things. But so they're going to differ from banks generally in that they are more open to working with startups, more open to types of businesses that a bank will see as too risk heavy, and also they're not going to penalize you as much as a bank would. Most of them have a cap on like interest rates and things like that, so they're not going to be penalizing you for maybe bad credit as much as a bank would. I've worked with people from credit scores in the 400s to the 800s. So there's a large range that we work with, and understanding of those personal situations, especially if those personal situations are on on the upswing. You know, you have a lot of people that in the past, maybe when they were younger, took on debt they shouldn't have, signed on to loans with people that they shouldn't have, things like that. And if they're working on that, if they're committed to working on that, then that's something that we look at probably differently than a traditional commercial lender.
Man, so many benefits to a CDFI. So I know that your CDFI is kind of tied to the tribe. Are there other Native CDFIs out there across the country that some of our Native artists can maybe tap into?
Yeah, there are. Not all CDFIs are focused on business lending. Some of them are focused on housing. Some of them are focused on other things. But yeah, there are other Native CDFIs. Don't mind if I look away from my computer real quick, or from my screen real quick. I'm going to look up a website real quick that you can look at. It's most CDFIs are listed at it's called ofn.org, Opportunity Financial Network. You can search by state there, and lots of different CDFIs have different relations with tribes. Ours is pretty direct. I'm a tribal employee, and things like that. But yeah, there are lots of Native CDFIs, and CDFIs in general. Lots of times are focused on minority or underserved community lending as well. So even if it's not connected to a tribe, they most likely have a focus or a idea that they want to lend to minorities.
Yeah, good to point out, because I do know we work with a lot of tribes in California and Nevada, and there aren't very many Native CDFIs available. But there are, a lot of regular CDFIs out there that people can work with. So Mary Beth, before we move away from lending, I'm curious, like, have you ever received any grants for your business? And if so, can you kind of tell us maybe where that grant funding came from and how you were able to use that grant funding for your business?
Well, I think because we are an LLC is why we were able to, when COVID hit, we were able to get the PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan. And we also got the, what is it called? The EIDL, which is actually a loan, but it's a very low interest loan. And we got several things through SBA. And then we also received, gosh, we did quite a few, and I would say about half of them were different Native funded. I'm trying to think, and I just went completely blank. I want to say Felicia, because we had worked with Felicia Friedman with the Potawatomi, their CDFI, that we had, we were able to receive a grant, and I can't for the life of me remember what the name of it was, but yes, we did receive several.
And how were you able to utilize those grants? Could you just take the money and spend it however you want to, or were the grants?
Some of them we could, some of them were directly for, supplies. Some of them were for living expenses that we had to show. And of course, the Payroll Protection Plan, we had to show that we were, using it for payroll. But yeah, it was all different. But I would say the majority of them were not really, they didn't rein you in on anything specific.
Lynn, if I could just say just something, so we've
Sure.
always been asked about grant funding to start a small business, and that's always very difficult. I don't even know that we know a place where you could go find grant funding. So that's to actually start your small business. During the pandemic, there was a lot of grant programs. Like up here, we have the logo from the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. They helped fund a program here in the state of California that provided funding to businesses that were already in existence during the pandemic. But if you hadn't started your business, there wasn't anything available. But I do want to encourage those that are Native artists. There's a lot of different opportunities. We have the logo here of the First Peoples Fund. There's a lot of Native artist specific grants that are out there. The First Peoples Fund have their different fellowship programs. We were involved with the Potlatch Fund. I mentioned that earlier. They had a fellowship program. And they're for artists that were in the Pacific Northwest. So there's a lot of more artist-specific programs that are out there. And one thing that we, and also with your tribe, right? Does your tribe have this? I think Mary Beth could also speak to competitions, juried art shows, things like that you would not typically think of as a grant, but those are things that would be available to you as an artist. And one of the things that we don't have on this screen is that there's ways that you can even take in donations from people. Normally, as an individual or a for-profit business, you can't get a donation from somebody. That's either a gift but if somebody's giving you that and they want to take a tax deduction from giving you that, they can't do that. But there's actually some organizations that work with artists that will set up something called a fiscal sponsorship. And a fiscal sponsorship is you become under kind of the accounting of this organization. And when somebody can actually donate money and they donate it to the organization will often take a small cut for like credit card fees and administration, maybe like 5-10%. And then you get the rest of that money. And then the person giving you that money gets a tax deduction. And then you get that money basically to use in your business and as an artist, right? And so I think there's ways as an artist, right, using that creativity trait to find ways to fund your business. So I definitely wanted to mention that.
I'd like to say also, one of the things that helped me to even know about a lot of these things were I am on a lot of different email lists. So there's, local art groups or state art groups, Native art groups, of course, SBA, REI, the women's business, First Peoples Fund, and you guys, Cherokee Nation. They're in any business type and arts type email list that you can get on. I would really recommend that because it helps in a lot of ways, not just in getting grants, but in finding out all kinds of information on workshops and, different events going on, and then different opportunities like that.
Yeah, and Melanie just mentioned in the chat box Patreon, and I think there's also a lot of, as a Native artist, crowdfunding options. I think that's one of the best ways to utilize crowdfunding as an artist. So look at those. It's hard to get into all these topics because they're pretty large, but we at least want to get you thinking about them. So Patreon and things like that are another method of bringing finances into your business as a Native artist.
Thank you, Mark. All good information, and thank you for sharing, Mary Beth. So, Mary Beth, I kind of want to get now into just kind of the entrepreneurial mindset or whatever. What is it that made you decide you want? I mean, I know I asked earlier what was the catalyst for starting your business, but why, as a Native artist, do you want to be an entrepreneur?
I think one of the things that, when John and I had talked about, and I hadn't really thought about it until, I don't even know if I should say this. I had posted on LinkedIn something about selling something that we had printed. And I had a very well-known older artist friend that said, well, how did he put it? It was something like, there's a fine line between being a manufacturer and a fine artist, and you need to decide which one of those you want to be. And, at first that really offended me. And I thought, well, who are you? The art boss, or, I don't. Anyway, I started thinking about that, and I thought, I do know what I want to do, and I do know what I want to be, and that's what I'm doing. And, I understand that there's a lot of artists out there that think you should only sell original art. And if that's what they want to do and they can make a living at that, I think that's amazing and wonderful for them. But that's not for everybody, right? So my thing is, what I tell people is, when I was growing up, we didn't have the money to buy a lot of big original paintings to hang on the wall, But one thing that we always had was a Norman Rockwell calendar hanging in our breakfast room or in the kitchen. And that's one of the things that made me want to become an artist, was Norman Rockwell. No, he wasn't a native artist, but he is an amazing artist, right? And I would sit and stare at those images in that calendar all the time. And the way that it made me feel, I want to be able to do that for somebody else. And so our thing is everybody deserves to be able to have art in their life, in their home, wherever, whether it be on a $10 coffee mug or an $8 cuff bracelet or, a $20,000 painting, whatever. But to be able to have that to where you can look at it every day and enjoy it, then why does that have to be such a great big thing? And some say that, well, that depreciates your art to have it printed on items like that. And I asked some of the collectors, they said, well, collectors don't like that. So my collectors, I've asked different ones and asked how they felt about that. And their response was, it's fine with us. We're actually proud because we have the original, and they just have copies of it, but I have the original. So I think that even the great masters, we see their work all the time. And if people hadn't made reproductions of those images, most of us wouldn't even know anything about them, the Mona Lisa or Michael or any of those, because not everybody travels. So if those weren't being reproduced, we wouldn't have been able to enjoy them, right? So, and that's the great masters. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to do this and get our work out there. Yeah. And
Yeah, well, I am glad that you do that, because of course, I wish we could show it, your painting of the Cherokee clan horses. I would never be able to afford the original, but I am able to afford a reproduction, and I love that painting. It's beautiful. So can you discuss with us a little bit about the pros and cons of starting your art business? How has it helped you maybe expand as an artist to be able to just focus on your art full time?
Well, whenever I was working, I worked in the museum for about 10 years. And the whole time I was working there, because I used so much of my creative energy working at that museum, that by the time I got home, it's like I didn't want to do anything. And so my goal was become a full-time artist. And then whenever we both became full-time artists and actually started it as a business and reproducing and doing it ourselves, it took a lot of time away from actually creating art. But I have to say, in the beginning, we were creating art and traveling to art shows. So we were creating a lot of art at first, and then we started printing. So we created art before art shows. Does that make sense? So we weren't just doing
Right.
it all the time. It was, okay, we know we have an art show coming up, so we have to plan and have this piece done before this show. So that's how it was then. So then we started doing our printing and doing art shows and traveling and teaching. And so that meant no time to do original art. Then the pandemic happened and we had to shift. And I actually had just started a huge painting for a competition and had to set it back and shift to our online and doing our online business, because we don't just do art shows and, you know, sell in person. We also sell online. So that's where we had to change our focus to. And then once we did that and we were stuck at home, right? So everything was shut down. All the shows were shut down. All the gift shops were shut down. The museums were shut down. And our wholesale was a lot of our business as well. And that all stopped. I mean, just completely stopped. And it, you know, it terrified me. I went into full blown panic mode and, you know, had to figure it out. What are we going to do? And so then, you know, teaching online helped, and being able to work on our Etsy store more, and everybody went to buying online. So it's like all of a sudden that just exploded. And so we were selling every day. But then because we were home, it also opened other doors and helped my art to actually expand, because something I've always wanted to do is illustrate books. And so all of a sudden I had the opportunity to do that. So now, just since the pandemic, I've been able to illustrate 3 books and I'm working on my 4th. And that's just, to me, that blows my mind, you know, and I've been able to do that. So that is original art. I have been able to do that and run our business here and take care of my in-laws. So, you know, we are juggling a lot of things, but we're doing it. And I come home and I work on our orders and I can work on the illustrations wherever I want to. So that's one of the great things about being self-employed and being able to have your business at home.
Yeah, great. So you were just talking a minute ago about, you know, you said you know, sell at art shows, art markets, that you have your online store. So how has selling online helped your business grow? And I really want to get into this because since this series is about helping Native artists learn more about e-commerce, I really want to get your experience from that end. How you got started, how it's helped your business grow, and maybe a little bit more detail on how you survived the pandemic because of your e-commerce sales.
Right. So when we very first really started selling online, before it was just mainly Facebook, you know, so some of my collectors are on our Facebook and I might send them a message, private message, if I was working on something new, you know, and show them what was going on. So that helps. If you have collectors on your and you should always have a business Facebook. If you have a business, don't put it all on your personal. That's to me, it's a big no-no to just do it on your personal. Have either a like page, fan page, or a business page to be able to be professional on there. But so then I actually started working with you guys. You had a grant to help us with our website and suggested that we not just do a website store, but to add or to connect an Etsy shop with our website. And at that time, I'd never even heard of Etsy. And so I was like, I don't know. I don't order anything online. I do now. We even order our groceries online now. But so you guys helped, you know, get that started and walked me through. And once it was done, then I was like, okay, it's done. I was thinking it's just like a website. Okay. Went on and my merry way and went on to keep doing what I was doing. And a couple of weeks later, Lynn called and said, "So how have you been doing on your Etsy shop?" And I said, I haven't sold anything on there. And so, then we both started researching to figure out what the deal was. And that's when I started learning so much more about doing the online sales and how to make Etsy work for us. And at first, because we were still doing art shows and we were gone traveling so much, I only wanted to use Etsy during our off season. So it was just kind of a little side hustle during like the winter months and, especially Christmas, times like that. And so that got us through those times, and I would work on it then, and that's when we would get the most business. But then when the pandemic started and we had to do that shift, then all my focus went into working our Etsy shop. And even before that, we were getting orders more and more. And it got to where I was kind of scared we wouldn't be able to fill all the orders because we got so busy. But it has really been great to have that instead of having just a website with the store built in, to have a platform to sell from that is a worldwide platform that is already established with customers that go there all the time. Than to just have a place to where, okay, here's my website, go to my website, or, somebody stumbling around accidentally find it, you know what I mean? Because so many people buy from Etsy, and in general, the people that do go to Etsy to buy are looking for handmade items, handcrafted items or art. So it has been a great lifesaver for us.
So had you ever made an international sale before you were on Etsy? I mean, and not only that, but the people that are buying from you on Etsy, like, are those just people you've never met, or is it people, that you're marketing to?
The only international sales we had before were people that were here on vacation, that were traveling and took it back with them. But other than that, no, until we had our Etsy shop, and now we sell everywhere. But I would say most of our customers on Etsy are people we've never met. We do have a few that, we know, but I will say, even though we've never met them, we have a lot of return customers that, just through Etsy, we know them now. So, and there's a way to even look on there to see if they're repeat customers if you don't remember them. But yeah, it's been a really good thing for us.
Awesome. Well, so, let's talk a minute about, pricing, because I know that's always such a huge thing that Native artists struggle with. How much do I charge for my work? And I don't think any of us have ever become the expert on that, right? So there's no right or wrong answer, I'm sure, but I just thought maybe if you don't mind sharing, how you determine your prices, and does it change, like when you were primarily selling your work, like maybe at powwows or art markets and stuff? Has that pricing changed since you've been able to go online and sell to a worldwide audience?
Yeah, what we usually do on the pricing, between going to shows and online, we do what's called a combination pricing formula, with First People's Fund. They give you several different pricing formulas that you can learn, and that was very helpful to us. But one of the things that I tell my students whenever I'm talking to them is, when you're selling on a platform like Etsy, even though you may think that you've got it figured out, I would still go in and research Etsy, like go into shops that have similar items to what you're selling and see how they're priced, not just one, but, look around and do some comparative shopping. And, because the type of things that we have, we're not the only ones that do that. And so, we wanted to make sure that we weren't way over the top, but that we weren't way underselling either. So we tried to find that happy medium. And I know, like with our cuff bracelets, we were we were the first Native artists to come out with those. And so we had no idea what to price them at. And so Lynn actually helped us do some research on that to find a happy medium. And we do price them a lot lower than what like the boutique type shops sell theirs for. But I feel comfortable with that. And that's the thing, you want to be comfortable with your prices and not be like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to tell that story. But well, okay. So I'm not going to. I just won't name a name. Whenever I did Santa Fe Market, there was an artist next to me that had 2 items in her booth, and I mean, she can do. I guess if you can do it, then do it. But she had people lined up outside her booth and had them both sold within the first like 10 minutes, and they were like $40,000 a piece. So, and I asked her later, I was like, can I ask you something? I said, how did you come up with your pricing? And she said, I just put it on there and I figure if they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. And I was like, wow. That would be nice to be able to do that on everything, wouldn't it? But yeah, realistically, you have to decide if you're just wanting to pay your rent, then, you can figure that out, doing different formulas and, I'd be happy to share any of those formulas with anybody. If they want to email me, I guess I can put my email over here, but, yeah, we just do the combination one.
Great. Well, listen, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah.
I know we're running short on time, and
sorry, I'm long-winded.
Yeah, so I'm
go
having
ahead.
a lot of fun. There's so many other questions I wanted to ask both of you, and I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, time is flying too quickly. So, I guess we'll have to, stop our conversation there. But, if anyone, does want to talk with Mary Beth, I know she is always open to people reaching out and contacting her and sharing. I'm not going to put your cell phone up or anything, Mary Beth. But,
Thanks.
But
I put
that's
my
the good
email
thing
in the
about.
chat.
There you go. So, people can contact you if they have, any questions or anything. And I know that you're always open to friends on Facebook, so people can obviously find you on Facebook and friend you, because I think that's one of the things when you're starting a new business, you just need mentors. You need people out there that you can go to, people like me, people like Brian that you can go to for assistance on the business side. But then, having those other mentors, people that are doing what you're doing, people like Mary Beth, that you can go to and kind of pick their brain and figure out how things work. And Mark, I know you had a slide up just a minute ago. There's so many other places that you guys can get resources, obviously through the IDRS Acorn Project. We are very Native focused and work with a lot of Native artists, so we're happy to help. If you happen to be living within the 14 county area that is the Cherokee Nation Reservation, you can reach out to Brian at the Small Business Assistance Center and get help from him. But there are other programs out there, regardless of where you are in the country. If your tribe has some kind of small business assistance program, I think that's always a great place to start. But there are federally funded programs such as the Small Business Development Center. There's SCORE. There's different procurement technical assistance centers. So all of these programs are out there and available for you to use free of charge. There's no reason for you to have to go out and pay anybody money to help you get your business started. So with that, Mark, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And then I don't know if Susan needs to say any last words before we end. But Mary Beth and Brian, thank you both so much for being here with us today. It was good to have you both and learn from you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. And so,
Thank you.
yeah, before Susan and Ken come back and close this, if there's any last questions for Brian or Mary Beth or Len or myself, we still have a few minutes, but you know, and like we have our information here, so you can find out information, and all our contact information is like on our nativebiz.org website for the IDRS Acorn Project. There's Mary Beth's business page that you can check her out, and there's also a link on there to her Etsy store. And that's actually my link, Brian. So I apologize about that, the ntv.bz.sbac, but your link to your site on the Assistance Center was so long, I thought that would be hard for people to write in. So I put that. But if you enter that, that actually takes you to the Cherokee Nation Small Business Assistance Center. And I actually think I have the link here. I will put that in the chat box so you guys all have it there. So that's the official link. But if there's no other questions, I'm going to turn it back over to Susan again.
Okay, I would just like to thank everybody for doing such a wonderful presentation. I'm so glad we were able to get everyone together, and so glad that we had so many people who were able to attend. I hope that people are ready and excited to sign up for session 2 next month, which is going to be an e-commerce primer. It's going to be sort of a broad overview of different e-commerce options for Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian artists to start selling their work online. And some more details of that program are going to be posted in the near future, along hopefully with the links we've discussed to the recording of this presentation. And I'm actually we didn't really get into me and what I do, but I am going to post a link also in chat to the Indian Arts and Crafts Board's website so that people can visit that and learn a little bit about us while we're at it. And I believe that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody. This has been wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much. So long.
Thank you, everybody.